We looked at another episode with Tracy Flelling, and she was on, before this episode, about a year or so before, and talked about her amazing journey with her husband, who died rather suddenly from esophageal cancer, and we caught up with her several years after that, and we really had some amazing discussions about going through hard times, prayer, understanding hard things that we go through in life, and a lot of great laughs.
And she's number 3 on our list, but if you want to watch it without us yammering along, she's episode 121 on both YouTube and Rumble.
Nice. Sweet.
Welcome to her show.
Welcome to the third chair, and we have our guest Tracy in Maine that we're Zooming with.
Tracy in Maine.
You can totally see that I am more normal than her. Look at that. I mean,
Range. Pathetic triangle rhyme. And then we have Peter.
Yo.
For some reason he does that.
I'm branding myself.
So we're going to the branding. Don't we do that with a hot iron?
Yeah.
We need to get that done.
Especially the pineapples.
Yeah, we'll brand you with a pineapple and a cross on it.
How long ago was that, Tracy? That
the show was on about a year ago. Yeah, wasn't it?
about a year ago?
About a year ago.
And I heard that one of the big things that happened to you is you got a new truck.
I did. I got a girl truck.
A girl truck? How come it's a girl truck? Now, explain the difference between a girl truck and a boy
You look
truck.
underneath.
Oh my goodness. And what part is different?
Now, before I had...
That was a misunderstanding the parts. I mean, only one part's different.
I thought for sure that Doug was going to say something like the nuts are different, but he didn't.
He missed such an opportunity.
I know. I wish I'd said it.
Thought maybe I won't try to learn how to weld this year. Maybe I'll save that till next year. Mm-hmm. So I ended up selling it, but I found I really miss having a truck because I do have to, go get lumber and carry tables and everything. So sadly, my brother-in-law passed away. And his wife, when the dust sort of settled, she decided that she wanted to sell the truck. My brother-in-law's name is Cecil. And so Cecil's truck was for sale, and I decided to buy it. And it's just, it's a 6-shift.
Zoom is always difficult because you just don't have control over what happens on the other side.
Cool.
Internet problems.
And obviously, people you talk to, they're not going to be sitting in a studio. We're sound controlled in here, but you can't control studio in her house. And her house is wood and high enough ceiling to have a little bit of echo in it. But this is really one of our better Zooms.
Wasn't he?
Cecil was a boy.
I'm confused by this whole thing. And I have another question that's deeply for why was Cecil driving a girl truck for years?
Well, I was like, I hope Cecil never finds out.
Yeah, just totally ignoring her while she's up there. Plus, it would be rather awkward if I had her on a screen behind you. You'd have to keep turning around. Then the audience couldn't see your faces.
Yeah, well,
but that could be nice.
That could be a good thing.
Yeah, that could be better and more kind.
In this episode, Tracy's the eye candy, not us.
Yeah.
A little more like 25, and that makes a big difference.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't know how to drive a standard anymore. So, that's quite something. Have you driven standards a long time?
Yeah, I haven't driven one in a long time, but that's what I learned on.
Did it come back to you naturally?
Huh?
Did it come back like right away, or did you have to work on it?
It did. It did, yeah. The first car I ever had, my dad helped buy. Well, I paid for it, but he picked it out. And it's not I can't recommend, well, my father's passed away, but I can't recommend him highly as a let's go buy a car kind of guy, because it was a French car called a Simca. It was like a box, and it was so bad. It was such a terrible car.
I remember that thing.
You do remember it, don't
you? The Simca, yeah.
Yeah, you had to pump the clutch
Oh, it was
several
a piece of
times
junk.
and
It
then
was a horrible
pull it out of
car.
gear, pump the clutch,
wasn't
put it
working.
into gear.
I
I
don't
mean,
know
it
if she
was
paid,
so
but
bad.
$5 would have
Wow,
been-
you
So it
really
was
had
great
a.
training, because
I
I
can
learned by the
imagine that.
time I'd driven it for a while, I could like turn the corner and roll down the window and pump, all of that. And so I think it's just like muscle memory or brain memory or
Well,
whatever.
this one
so,
must
yeah.
be easier than pump it like several times and do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Well, I was on vacation in Australia with my family, and we rented like a camper, and it was a standard. So I'm trying to adapt to having the wheel on the right side and shifting with my left hand rather than my right. Oh man, did I ride the clutch and do all kinds of
Did
things.
the car come back in one piece?
It came back in
That
one
was an
piece,
accomplishment.
but it was stressful. It was really stressful when I moved things. I was often wondering, is this going to go into reverse or third or what? I had.
Where in Australia?
We took a trip sort of. We went to Hobart and then Sydney and Melbourne and Cairns and Brisbane, and we saw Ayers Rock in the middle too. I think it's Angeles City.
Wow,
So
that's a big trip.
yeah, it was a 3-weeker, and then we went from there 3 weeks to New Zealand.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, New Zealand's. Australia is awesome, except I found the food so bland. It was so typically kind of British. Really, very little taste.
Except for fish and chips. Fish and chips.
Oh, yeah, with enough malt vinegar.
Yeah, well, that's England too. I love the fish and chips. That's about it.
Yeah.
And then you went to Indian
Yeah.
places.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are great places otherwise, but
You know, I have a
when
story about driving with a clutch. The Army, NTC, and where they have the training to fight the war, they get the oldest equipment. So they had these trucks that you drove with a clutch. But in the newer trucks, which the soldiers, these 18, 19-year-old soldiers didn't have a clutch. So then they got the NTC, and they never drove a clutch before. So they had to spend the first 3 days learning how to drive their truck.
yeah.
Because, I mean, that's a big difference if you drove a
It
standard
is
all your
a huge
right.
difference. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And to not panic, like the other day, I was going somewhere in the truck and I stalled it, but it was, and I was at a light and, you would but I didn't panic. I was just like, put the clutch in, turn the key. But when you're not used to that and the truck
yeah.
stalls and you're in the traffic, you kind of like your brain freezes, you freak out. So that would have been tough.
I panicked a lot of times when I drove.
Yeah.
It was just a bundle of nerves every time I got anywhere.
Well, I was in the Canadian Reserve Army in our equivalent of a MASH unit, and we had our portable hospitals on these giant. They really were like giant dump trucks, and they were all standard as well. And that was scary because not only are you doing manual, but this is a big, heavy truck and really easy to gauge the distance wrong.
Yeah.
They were way better vehicles back when we had stick shift in the military. The newer stuff, garbage.
Yeah, but the problem is, can you find a soldier,
Yeah.
an 18-year-old that would have any idea with a stick shift nowadays?
Yeah, exactly.
They just put that into the school. When I went in 1983, and you would you learn to drive a stick shift in your school.
Yeah.
It's harder to get
It's
a
hard
stick
for
shift
schooling,
nowadays.
yeah.
So back to your four-wheeling. Now you use this truck for carrying a lot of equipment, right? I mean, when you go do shows and stuff, can you tell us how that works out?
Well, last year was the first year that I have actually, like when I was with you guys last year, we announced that my website was going to be opened, and it was this year. And last year was the first year that I actually went and did what's known as an artisan show or a crafter show. And so what it is it's a show where you can come and sell your product, but they do what they call jurying your product. In other words, your product has to be judged by a team of people because they want to keep the caliber of the show at a certain level. So I wanted to go to this show, and so I had to have my product juried, and I did pass. But the reason it's a show here in Maine that's been going on for about 30 years, and my father-in-law has been at that show every single year, and he carves realistic birds, songbirds, and owls and falcons and stuff. And older gentlemen, and because of COVID, they didn't have the show for 2 years. So Mom and Dad didn't show for 2 years, and when it came time that the show was going to open up again, Dad's like, well, I haven't done it in a couple years, and I'm in my 80s, and I just don't know if I can. And I said, well, Dad, I'll come and help you. And he said,
Welcome back to the third chair. We have our guest Tracy.
Did you almost say we have our dog?
Yes.
I'll have to ask Tracy about that, see what she thinks of that.
And Mary caused a little stir during the break, but not very little. And then we have Peter, who causes a big stir
Wherever he goes.
wherever he is.
Yeah, I think, Tracy, I want you to carve me like me doing a yo kind of the little birds that you hold in your hands. What are they? The compassion birds?
You could sell that around October 31st.
So
what was that?
I said you could sell a carving of Peter around October 31st.
I could be a whole new line of product.
So Tracy, you were talking about your in-laws and doing this show in Maine.
Oh yeah,
And
so we
woodworking?
had, as a family, we decided that we really wanted Dad to be able to show, and so we all pulled together. And I was just going to help out, but it turned out I talked to the show people, and they said, "Oh yes, you can have a booth next to him." So that was my first show ever, and it was very interesting, and it went very, very well. I basically sold out, but the really cool thing is, Dad got to do a show, and he really enjoyed it. And I'm so glad we did it, because he actually passed away October 24th.
Oh,
So
sorry.
we were able to give him that gift of doing
yeah.
that last show.
One last
He
show.
really- yeah. And because he had done the show for 30 years, he was really well known. He had a lot of customers that came frequently. So I'm gonna now I'm in. It's a little bit hard to get into that show, but because of COVID and because of my father-in-law, I got in. And so I talked to him this year, and I said, "Oh yeah, you can come back." So, but it's about 3 hours away, so you have to load up your tables, load up all your product and all your display and everything. And so the truck will be really handy to load all that up, stick the dog in the back, and drive north.
I think that was pretty. She did that in August. I think it was pretty successful for her, and really
Good.
got the name of her products, both the tables and the other pieces that she does out there. So I was really glad to see that.
Yeah.
Oh, neat. Peter bit me earlier. I won the bet. He said there weren't 5,000 people in the whole state of Maine. So
Bit you or bet you? I don't remember. What
Yeah,
that
I
was.
don't know either. I think he said bit first.
No biting the co-hosts.
No biting the gauze.
People are gonna think, "Oh, Doug left because you bit him."
Or Doug left because of rabies. But
or something like that.
Well, not my grocery store. There is a grocery store that's about 15 minutes down the road, but Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot,
and you need
anything like
supplies.
that, sort of big box type store. Yeah, it's 40 minutes. So if you're gonna go to you don't just zip down to Walmart to get a package of gum. You have you plan it out.
So you plan to do these 3 stores all at once when you go?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're talking about it something that takes you like most of the day or something because you do other
Well,
things.
I have a customer down there that I do gardening for. That Neil and I used to do gardening for, and I continue to do gardening for her. So I usually just make a day of it. Go down, do her gardening. Hit all the stores, go to the grocery store, and come home. And yeah, it's a half a day. It might depends on what kind of gardening I have to do, but yeah.
So how often do you do this?
Yeah, maybe once a month.
Oh,
Maybe,
okay.
yeah, not so often. Yeah.
Hmm.
You just plan ahead. And really, when COVID started, I really got in the habit of, because it was just such a pain in the neck to go and do everything. I just got in the habit of just like going and, buying for a month. Other than perishables, you can do it.
I live kind of almost like in a suburb of Colorado Springs, and
Yeah.
I also like to do two things when I come to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this and this. I'm going to add that to
It's
that.
a different lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, one of those things is to visit Peter.
Yeah, it's usually number one on my list.
Probably in the insane asylum, maybe.
That's right.
Yeah, and Doug lives a little bit out, but Maine is very, very different. I mean, she lives in Northport. There's nothing. There's a small sort of grocery store. That's it. That's all Northport is. So it's 15, 20 minutes just to get to a grocery store. Walmart really is 40 minutes away. Any Lowe's, I don't even know where that is. I mean, everything is. You have to think about everything you do. It's far away.
Yeah, there's lots of parts of even rural Colorado that are like that.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, you can live lots of places where you're driving
Even though a place like
30 minutes to a gas station.
Go out to Como or South Park, there's nothing there. You have to go a long way.
Also, because I've been going down to Florida for about 6 or 8 weeks each winter, so it's not been a problem. Yeah, just stay put.
So you don't have to call the boss, which is Mary, and ask for a day off. She'd say yes every
Mary is
day.
the boss.
She
is
says,
the boss. She
Mary says,
recently promoted. She's promoted to shop supervisor, and she's doing such a good job. I had to give her a bump in her cookie pay.
Mary probably's only big requirement is you rub her tummy like 10 minutes every day, right?
Pretty much, and give her a cookie. That's about it.
Well, that's about all I need as well. So, Tracy, we're going to...
Yeah, you're not getting that on the show or the movie.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll talk about the movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty much hoping any scene you write, if you don't write a big enough death for you, I'm going to rewrite that scene and make it big.
Well, you don't want. I don't want to hog the emphasis of the film.
Well, Tracy has also agreed to come out and be someone who dies in our film.
As you went through the treatment, was it esophageal cancer that he had, all the way to the end, and then on the show you'd also talked about the challenges and the obstacles living as a widow, and even some of the outreach to other widows that you had done. And so this topic sort of dovetails with that, and you brought up the idea to talk about, and quote me if tell me if I'm saying this wrong, but praying to have God say yes to your prayer, is that sort of what you're saying? Tell us about that.
Well, I have a story that kind of made me realize that. So Mary and I drove. Well, actually, I did most of the driving. I only let her drive on the back roads. We drove together.
The dog.
It took 5 days. And
she's a big dog, so she
on
can reach the steering wheel and the pedals, right?
Well, I do the pedals. She does the steering wheel.
Okay.
So she can, yeah. So anyway, I ended up, something weird was going on with my car. My car is like a push button start, and it's got the little key fob,
Yeah.
And I don't know, the key fob was acting kind of funky. But when you drive for 5 days with a dog, you figure it out. You figure out how to make it work. So what we would do, I would stop, I would get out, I'd take Mary out, let her go to the bathroom. Then I would put her in the car. I'd give her some water. I'd give her a cookie. Then I'd close the door and I'd walk around and I'd get in and we'd go on our way. And I was like in the middle of nowhere at a little gas station in North Carolina, and I did that. And when I shut the door with Mary in the car, I heard this funny little click. And when I walked around to the other side, the door was locked. So the windows are up. My dog, who's on prednisone, which means she's thirsty and has to pee a lot, is locked in the car. And everything I own, including my winter coat, my phone, everything is in the car. And I was kind of freaked out. And so I was like, God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You know, and so I went into the gas station, and it was pretty hilarious, actually, because I went up to the counter and there was a checkout girl, and I said, I got a problem. And she said, what's the matter? And I said, I locked my keys in the car and my dog's in the car. And she said, oh, don't worry, Ronnie, come here. And this guy came over and he took this bag off the wall, which was all the different ways you break into a car. I am not kidding. And so he took his little bag and we went out, and it took quite a while. He had like a little plastic wedge that he pushed in the door, and this little, I mean, it was just amazing. And this other guy drove up and he said, oh, when I break into cars, this is what I do. I was
We're going to continue that in a moment.
Yeah, hold that thought, Tracy. I like the story. We need to go to a break. Welcome back to the third chair. I'm Peter. That's Doug. We're with Tracy live from Maine, although this is going to be put up on YouTube later. Tracy was just sharing the story of her dog being locked in cold weather inside her truck, and apparently a man who had a lot of experience breaking in was assisting her. So finish that story, please.
Okay, so, and this refers back to prayer. So, because it was 40 minutes and I didn't have my phone, I couldn't call AAA, I couldn't, I'm just standing there. I realized that I was standing there just as tense as could be, and I was praying in every way I could to make God say yes to me. That's what I was up to. I was standing there just trying to figure out, how am I going to make God say yes? And I think realized that I was like, I'm not doing anybody any good. And so I just kind of relaxed and said, okay, I'm not in charge here, God. We got a problem. I'm going to let you sort it out.
But you had two guys who knew how to steal cars.
Yeah. And it was very interesting that it was probably another 10, 15 minutes when the guys finally they actually got the door like cracked far enough to get the little metal thing in, and they actually had I'm just searching for words, the door handle. They had the door handle pulled out and the door wouldn't open. So that, there's obviously something electronic that was a problem. And then the guy who had a lot of experience stealing cars said, or not stealing, breaking into cars. That's what he said. I don't know.
The chop shop was behind the building?
But anyway, he thought he had the thought to take that piece of wire and press the car start button and then roll the window down. And it worked. But it was just such an interesting moment for me to realize what I was up to. I was like, I'm going to make God say yes. And it was it was startling, and it began this thought process in me of why do I pray? What am I up to? What do I think about that? And what is going on there? And so it was really interesting.
Well, one of the things that reminds me of is sometimes when God answers a prayer, it's with the most interesting people that you would never predict helping. Yeah, I remember a few years ago we were going through some tough financial times, and I had my 4 kids in my SUV, and I'd forgotten my wallet. I had like $1 in pennies. I was totally out of gas. I was really feeling dejected and desperate, and kind of feeling like a failure as a father. And I was at this gas station, and I was walking in to humbly present my pennies to get $1 worth of gas that would not take me very far. And this young kid with more tattoos and facial metal that I've ever seen in my life, that was driving a motorcycle, he walks up to me, hands me $10, and says, I think you need this, and walks off. And it's interesting how those kinds of things happen in ways that blow our mind. You might think, oh, some pastor that heard God was driving down the highway and would pull in and do something, and it seems like it's not that way a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's good. I think it makes us more real.
Yeah.
More. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, more real, honest people when those kind of things happen to us.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys, that tall, skinny guy and the short guy. They were not the people that I would just walk down the street and say they're going to help me, but they were a huge help. And I don't know. I just felt like it was just a really, really revealing about me, but in a good way. Like, I was like, okay, that's not, I don't want to just be. I say that my favorite days are the days when Tracy shows up without her agenda.
Uh-huh.
Those are my days, when I don't have.
And that's the hard thing to do. And I like how she presented this. She never presented herself uppity or more spiritual.
What
She
life
just,
I can impact or help or touch.
how do you figure out
But not
life? I
with an
mean,
agenda,
she's
not with
faced
a
some of the
plan.
things that we
And
never
there's
want to
not a lot
face.
of
Losing
those
your
days,
husband.
unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
And
now
at an
that you
age
learned
where
the skill of
no one
breaking
should
in,
be
have
losing
you
their
been
husband. And
used it anywhere?
Yeah.
they didn't have kids, so that was her life.
I have a new
I mean,
plan.
We don't want to
this happened,
incriminate her
this
if there's
you.
anything that
It just Well, like,
maybe
was
she'll
like
add
that to her
all of a sudden,
resume. Bang.
Yeah.
And
I
all of a
wonder
sudden,
why
bang, it
people
was
steal a
really
lot of cars
bad.
out east because
And I was angry at God
I mean,
for a while.
especially southeast, because
Yeah, that was a rough time where I had to really work some things out for a little bit
and I know
on how God works.
there's a lot
I
of
And
spent some time in El
still don't
Paso,
always
and
understand
I
it,
top
but
10
I
in
got
the
back to a
paper
trusting
Saturday.
phase on
Yeah.
that.
The cars that were
that's a good
stolen.
Well, you know what I found out happens here that's really interesting is people will rent a U-Haul truck and drive it straight to Mexico because to sell it or whatever. And apparently it's a lucrative business, especially if you can get someone else to rent it for you. Then you're,
Don't
there's
rent
stuff
a route U-Haul truck for anybody.
you might do that for a family member, but I've seen ads on like Craigslist where I'm desperate. Can you help
Some
me
family
rent a-"
members.
Yeah, some family members. Yeah, but it's also interesting. It's like the whole idea of sort of expecting God to answer a prayer. He says like give us this day our daily bread. But I don't picture God there saying, okay, you pray for me to give you daily bread and I'll think about it. I'm glad you're praying, but maybe I will, maybe I won't. It's like, no bread for you today. I think part of that depends also on whether we're praying for needs during times of, especially times of desperation, as opposed to, I need that new Dodge or Ford F-350 truck. God, I can serve you with that brand new truck.
And sometimes you do.
Hey, I guess I have come to think of prayer. In Christian circles, you'll often hear people say, "Oh, I should pray more. I think I need to pray more." I don't think that prayer is an obligation. I think it's a privilege. I mean, prayer is just talking to God. It's not like something we should be checking off on our list. And sometimes I think, especially if I'm praying for something like someone really in need, or maybe the persecuted church, or the starving children. I think I'm talking to God about something that really matters to Him,
Yeah.
that He really cares about. I'm having a conversation with the God of the universe about something that matters to Him, and it just has changed me from feeling like, oh, I need to, like should pray every day, or it's just conversation.
Yeah, and for me, it's also I've found over the last few years. There's an honesty. I mean, if I'm frustrated and angry and have been waiting for things for a long, long, long time, and it's been hard, I don't sugarcoat it. I just, when I pray, it's like, God, what the heck? I'm really hurting, and this has been a long, painful season of my life, and I'm not doing well, and I'm getting impatient. I have a lot of prayers like that, sort of more of the lamentation prayers of the psalm kind of a thing.
And I think God's man enough to take it, so to speak. I mean, I think God's big to take. I think He'd prefer our honesty, really.
Yeah, I do too.
These and thous, and what's that saying? Too holy for your own good, or whatever.
Yeah, too spiritual to be no earthly good, or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to hold that thought, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you one more question about your thoughts on prayer. Welcome back to the third chair. Peter here, Doug here. Tracy Fuelling in Maine has joined us, armed with her side pet, Mary the dog, for encouragement, and I know Mary's trying to get a cookie. So
is Peter.
Yeah,
I
always.
think she's taking a nap, which is a good idea.
Well, when she wakes up, she'll be ready for that cookie.
And Peter might be napping in the show, too.
It's happened before.
I tell you, we filmed not long ago, and the second episode, Peter, I know, wanted to take a nap.
Oh, boy, we filmed, not too long ago, and I was tired.
Yeah, that's the Joe Black show, and he caught you.
Yeah. Oh, man, I was so tired that night.
He wasn't even looking at you, and he caught you.
Yeah, he probably heard me.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, you have some of those nights where you just didn't sleep the night before, and you're working to 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and it's like, oh.
And I didn't use any red arrows pointing at you doing it at all. I would never do something like that in post-production.
Yeah, I needed to drink a giant rock. Do you ever struggle with that, or wrestle with that, or think about that?
Yeah, I do. And I have to say, and this kind of goes back to my favorite days are the days that Tracy shows up without her agenda. I like it when I'm able to be in a place where I can say, because sometimes I'll be, I run my woodworking shop, which was Neil's woodworking shop. And I don't know, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like I told my sister-in-law, I don't know stuff. I just know how to find out stuff.
Mhm.
So I might be at my CNC router and think, oh man, what am I going to do if? And I love the days when I say, well, I guess you'll show me, God. And I'm just content to wait for that. But we're emotional creatures. I mean, God made us with emotions, and emotions they get in the way of just praying and waiting contentedly. I think it's tough. The pastor of my church waited 20 years to be a pastor.
Yeah.
20 years.
See, that's tough.
And he's in his 70s. He's like, I'm not retiring. It took 20 years to get here. He's been there for 20 years. But,
right.
You're right. It is really hard to. It's like God doesn't talk out loud very often, so we have to kind of. So I love it when I'm able to say, "Okay, God, I have told you my problem, and now I'm going to work on other stuff until you answer that." But it's tough.
Especially
I kind of blame Jonah.
Yeah.
Jonah always said, God, I can't do that. God.
Yeah, God, I can't do that.
As though he's talking to these people out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes when things take a long time, we tend to start, do I just not have enough faith? And sometimes that is an issue. Did I cheat a little bit on my taxes? Is this,
But sometimes God wants you to wait because He doesn't think you're ready.
Well, that's just it. Yeah,
can't handle it.
Yeah, that's just it. But it'd be one thing to be told, in 13 years I'm going to give you that because that's how long it's going to take to train you. But we don't. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do that for you. Just carry on, and sometimes you're wondering, like, what am I supposed to do? What does this mean?
Big when he, after 20 years, when he finally became a pastor, he probably was more appreciative than if God told him, yeah, on June 1st, 1989, you're going to be a pastor. Then he would be just expecting it.
Well, we figured that out with how God does things. I mean, from the time that the Israelites left Egypt, God could have had them a temple in no time. 400 plus years.
Oh, I know.
And it's like 400 years, and they were waiting on their temple.
Yeah. We're all pretty impatient, and we consider if it takes 2 years a long time. And
2 years is a long time.
Yeah, and 14 years. I just had a huge major breakthrough in my life that took 14 years, and
wow.
and I
you
literally
worked hard for that, though.
Yeah, but God took me right out to the very edge of, I don't believe you, I don't trust you anymore, as far as I could go. Without like giving up, and I didn't, and then the breakthrough came, and that in itself was learning. But I don't wish it on people. For
it's hard.
It's hard.
Very hard. Yeah. And it's that. The daily slog is what's hard. It's easy to say. There's people say God says yes, no, or wait. And he does. He says yes, no, or wait. But when you're in the wait, you don't, And sometimes I'll say, God, what are you up to? And then I'll say, actually, I don't really want to know. And the reason is because if I had known what was going to happen to Neil and what I was going to go through and what these 5 years were going to be like, it would have killed me to know it. I'd rather just walk those days with him. But that's more of the, that's like what's coming down the pike. I don't really want to know. But when you're asking God to do something in your life and your intention is well, and you don't get an answer, you're right. It's tough. And it's that day after day after day no change. It can wear you down, like you say, take you right to the edge of.
Of course, he told Jesus, "You're gonna die."
Yeah.
Jesus knew.
He knew.
And I don't think that made it easy on Jesus.
No, I don't think so either. It's more.
He was praying,
Yeah. Well, and Peter, you said something to me when we were talking pre-production about talking back and forth. You said something that rang really true with me that might apply to your particular situation. You said to me, "Yeah, we chewed some of the same dirt."
Yeah.
And I love that saying. And I just thought about you and your life, and I thought, Peter knows. He knows that long slog and sticking it out. And who knows who you are going to run into who's in that kind of situation that you've watched that, and you're getting to this breakthrough. You never
done that a lot with widows in the area who maybe not even had it quite as bad as she did, and the things she faced. So that's been a big part of what, not a planned ministry life, but just where she has wound up as she goes along with the work that she does in the shop of just touching lives. And so it's been really amazing how she's been able to help a lot of women go through what is one of the worst things that can happen in life.
It's always so remarkable how God uses people after they've been through a lot of crap to help other people going through the same crap.
It's like he knows.
Well, I'm telling you, you have been given credit to several people in Maine. You have been given credit for that line, because I have been talking to people.
Until they
have you?
Until they watch the film and they're going to go, wait a minute, I heard that somewhere before.
Yeah, but I love that line.
But a good line should be borrowed and used.
Yeah.
Actually, when I come out there, we'll watch that film with all those people so they go, oh, wait.
Yeah.
There it is. This is the big moment.
Heartbreak Ridge, it's an interesting movie to watch. It's kind of a war movie. It's well acted, and it's got some great writing and some good humor. It's worth a watch. A little tiny bit of swearing, but not bad. Yeah. Well, we are going to take a break here, and then when we're coming back, Doug is going to
ask you what your favorite movie is, since we just talked about movies. So you can think about it, or if you have a set of movies.
You got 30 seconds or so to think about that, and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Peter from Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching, and as you know, I do help people with drug and alcohol recovery issues. I love to help people get better, but I also offer a variety of other services, including regular life coaching services. I've helped several people write and finish a book. I've helped a doctor that was in medical school graduate and then get into a residency. And I also actually have quite a background in mathematics, and I do some math tutoring for the GED as well as the ASVAB for those that are thinking about a career in the military. So my contact information is on the screen. Please send me an email or a text, and we can talk about some of these services and how I can help. That's Peter Grigg at Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching.
Welcome to the third chair. Peter's still here, and Tracy's still thinking because we asked her what her favorite movie is before the break, and we're going to see if she's been able to pick one.
Well, I have a lot of favorite movies, but I got to tell you, the one that came to mind is Here Comes the Boom.
Here comes
the boom. Never heard of it.
I was like, here comes the bride.
Here comes the bride.
So what is this? Here comes the boom.
Peter Fonda and Kevin. I can't think of his last name right now, but he was also
does a
in
lot of
Hit.
stuff with Adam Sandler. Kevin,
Adam Sandler. Kevin.
right? He
Anyway,
does. Yeah, I'll look him up.
he does. He's trying to save someone's job at the school, and so he does. Not wrestling. What is that? MMA. Yeah, MMA wrestling. And it is such.
Where they box and kick.
Is it with
kick.
Kevin James? Is it Kevin James?
Yes, Kevin James.
Yeah. I've seen that. It's hysterical.
Kick
It is
and punch.
hysterical, but it's a movie of victory. At the very end when he says, "I don't think I can do this," and Henry Fonda does that speech about what are we supposed to do as teachers? Inspire. Look at those kids, you've inspired them. I mean, it's just makes you want to do something. It's a good movie. So that's my current favorite.
Nice.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Kevin James actually did learn some mixed martial arts in real life, and so
That's
it
what I
wasn't a
heard.
stretch for him to do some of that acting.
And they said he was really courageous. He really did a great job in it all. So, what are your favorite movies?
Go ahead, Doug.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Clint Eastwood.
Wow.
A lot of interesting things in
Wait,
that
that's
movie.
us. That's the three of us.
Go ahead, I'm the good, huh?
I'm the ugly.
Well, all we know what the producer is, but we all kind of thought that up here on the stage.
Yeah.
I saw a movie that was kind of similar by the same director this weekend, Once Upon a Time in the West.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. Yeah.
It's kind of similar because it has a lot of it was another spaghetti western, but this one had Henry Fonda as a bad guy and Charles Bronson as the good guy.
Yeah, there's a number of movies depending on I think one of the greatest movies ever made is Sleepless in Seattle. I don't know, have you ever seen that?
Another bit of evil after the 5-6 times I had to watch that stupid film.
Yeah, it's got a cute ending.
I don't apologize for calling it stupid either.
I have several favorite movies, but one of them is a movie called Enter the Dragon. It starred Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee was a very famous
That was probably his most
kung
famous
fu.
movie.
Yeah, probably the most famous kung fu artist. He really was the grandfather of modern MMA. But he also was an actor in Hong Kong, and was a big visionary.
He was Kato on the Green Hornet.
He was Kato on the Green Hornet, but
That was the only reason to watch the show.
But he decided that he was going to make a movie that made him $10 million, and he wrote and he acted in Enter the Dragon, and Warner Brothers did it with him, and it's just, if you like martial arts, it's a great martial art type movie. It's got kind of a spy theme to it as well. But if you want to laugh, there's a series of spaghetti westerns that were made in Italy called like My Name is Nobody.
My Name is Trinity.
My Name is Trinity. There's 2 or 3 of them. They're just hysterical. And they were done as spoofs when westerns were popular in the 1970s. They were done almost something that a Weird Al would do.
Clint Eastwood started in the spaghetti westerns before, Italian ones bey became famous here.
Yeah.
Yesterday was just totally serious.
Henry Fonda is a really interesting actor because he is. I mean, he's very talented, but he, I've heard him on interviews talk about he has horrible stage fright. And even after many years acting, sometimes he'd be so nervous he'd be throwing up in his dressing room. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, how would they do it? Buy your furniture and your.
I have a website
products?
now. It's up and running, and hopefully it will possibly be put on the screen. It's Tracy's Tiny Tables, and you can contact me there. That's my product, a little bit of my story, what my policies are about shipping and everything, and pictures of my products. So that would be the best way. is just www.tracystinytables, all one word, .com, I think. Anyway.
We'll get it right on the screen.
Yeah.
Is that segment 5?
Huh?
Is that
Yeah,
segment
that was-
5? That's segment 5. That's why Doug's pointing at me. Anyways, thanks for being here. You're going to be here for another episode. We are so excited.
We probably could get 3 more episodes.
Yeah.
Of this.
Anyways, please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell icon so you know when we've uploaded another episode. Good night.